Think about the last hour of your life. How many of your actions were actually decisions? You didn't consciously decide to check your phone the moment you felt a flicker of boredom. You didn't decide to bite your lip while reading that email. And you certainly didn't choose the exact muscle movements required to walk to the kitchen. Something else chose for you. In psychology, we spend a lot of time talking about the conscious mind, the you that makes New Year's resolutions and career plans. But beneath that surface, there is a ghost. It's a neural circuit designed to turn your life into a series of automated, invisible scripts. Today, we are going to look at why your brain resists change, not because you are weak, but because you're running on ancient hardware. This is the science of the basal ganglia. To understand why habits are so hard to break, we have to go deep into the center of the brain. Beneath the folded layers of the cerebral cortex lies a cluster of neurons called the basal ganglia. Think of the basal ganglia as your brain's efficiency department. Your prefrontal cortex, the front part of your brain, is high energy. It's responsible for complex logic, moral choices, and long-term planning. But it is also incredibly expensive to run. It tires easily. To save energy, the brain wants to move as many tasks as possible out of the prefrontal cortex and into the automated storage of the basal ganglia. This process is known as chunking. When you first learned to drive a car, your prefrontal cortex was on high alert. You had to think about the mirrors, the pedals, and the steering all at once. It was exhausting. But after a few weeks, the basal ganglia chunked those actions into a single script. Now you can drive for miles while thinking about what you want for dinner, completely unaware of the hundreds of micro-adjustments your body is making. The ghost has taken the wheel, so the self can daydream. The reward loop and dopamine. The problem with the basal ganglia is that it doesn't have a moral compass. It is a machine that follows a specific code, the habit loop. This loop consists of three parts: the cue, the action, and the reward. The cue is a trigger. It could be a time of day, an emotional state like stress, or even a specific location. The action is the habit itself. But the reward is where the ghost gets its power. Every time a behavior results in a hit of dopamine, the basal ganglia records it. If you are stressed, the cue, and you eat a sugary snack, the action, your brain receives a surge of dopamine, the reward. To the basal ganglia, this is a success. It doesn't care about your health goals or your long-term fitness. It only knows that action X solved problem Y. Over time, that neural pathway becomes a physical groove in your brain. The next time you feel stress, your hand is in the cookie jar before your conscious mind even realizes you're hungry. You aren't making a choice, you're executing a script. Think of it like a battery. When you are stressed, tired, or hungry, that battery drains. When the prefrontal cortex goes offline, the basal ganglia takes over by default. This is why you can be perfectly disciplined at 10 a.m., but find yourself scrolling through social media or eating junk food at 9 p.m. You haven't lost your character, you've just run out of the energy required to override the ghost. Recent studies in cognitive science suggest that the brain actually enters a state of predictive processing. Your brain is constantly guessing what it should do next based on what it did yesterday. If your yesterday was defined by a specific habit, the basal ganglia treats that habit as the safest prediction for survival. To the brain, change isn't just difficult, it feels like a threat to the system's efficiency. So, how do we take back control? You cannot simply delete a neural pathway in the basal ganglia. Once a script is written, it's there for life. However, you can overwrite it. This is the process of habit substitution. You must identify the cue. If you know that boredom at your desk is the trigger, you can't just tell yourself, "Don't check your phone." That's a negative command, and the basal ganglia doesn't understand not doing something. Instead, you must give it a new action that leads to a similar reward. If the reward you're seeking is a momentary distraction, replace the phone with a 60-second stretching routine or a glass of water. It will feel clunky and difficult for the first few weeks because the prefrontal cortex has to do all the work. But eventually, usually around the 66-day mark, the basal ganglia will accept the new script. Mastering your life isn't about having more willpower than everyone else. It's about understanding the machine you live inside. Your habits are not your identity. They are just automated scripts. Once you see the ghost, it loses its power over you.
This is LucidPsych, and this is how we understand the mind. Sleep well.